They laughed when he warned them. They built 96 houses on his land without asking. But he didn't yell, he didn't fight. He simply smiled and waited. What happened next shocked an entire town. The morning sun rose over Riverside County, painting the dirt roads gold. For decades, that land had belonged to Elias Green, a quiet man in his 50s. He had inherited it from his grandfather. 100 acres of peaceful farmland, a legacy that carried their family's name. But progress has a way of ignoring history. One day, Elias returned from town to find heavy machines crawling across his fields. Bulldozers tore through the grass. Survey flags lined the ground. He approached a man in a hard hat. "Excuse me, sir," Elias said. "You're on private property." The man barely looked up. "Talk to the HOA. They bought this subdivision fair and square." Elias frowned. "HOA? I never sold a thing." The man shrugged. "Not my problem, old-timer." That night, Elias spread the paperwork across his kitchen table. Deeds, maps, tax receipts, everything proved the same thing. He still owned the land. Days later, he met with Helen Marks, the HOA president, a sharp-tongued woman in a bright pink suit. She laughed when he confronted her. "Sir, your records must be outdated. Our company purchased this area last year." Elias placed his deed on her desk. "Signed 1962, never transferred, never sold." Helen rolled her eyes. "You'll regret causing trouble. We have lawyers." Elias smiled calmly. "So do I. But unlike yours, mine have the truth." Still, the construction continued. Week after week, new houses rose from his soil. Modern boxes stacked in neat rows. Neighbors moved in. Streets were paved. Children played where his grandfather's barn once stood. People whispered that Elias had given up. But he hadn't. He quietly visited the county courthouse, filed the papers, paid the fees, and waited for one final signature, the confirmation of ownership that would make everything undeniable. Months later, when the 96th house was completed and the HOA held a grand opening ceremony, Elias showed up wearing a simple gray jacket and holding a brown envelope. Helen spotted him and groaned. "Not you again." He walked straight to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said calmly, "you've built something beautiful. But there's a problem." The crowd murmured. Helen whispered to security, "Get him out." Elias opened the envelope. "This," he said, holding up a court order, "is proof that every inch of this land still belongs to the Green family." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Helen's smile vanished. "That can't be true," she shouted. "Oh, it's true," he replied. "You built on private property." The police officer standing nearby took the papers and read them carefully. "Ma'am," he said to Helen, "this is a valid ruling. He's the legal owner." Elias looked at the stunned crowd and said softly, "I tried to warn you." The HOA executives scrambled. Lawyers flooded the courthouse, but every document traced back to Elias Green, the rightful heir. Within weeks, the story hit national news. Man lets HOA build 96 homes on his land, then wins it all back. Reporters camped outside his gate, but Elias stayed humble. "I didn't want revenge," he told them. "I wanted respect." Behind the scenes, the city offered to negotiate. They proposed millions to buy the land legally this time. Elias shook his head. "Too late. The land's not for sale, but I'll rent it back. On my terms." When the new contracts were signed, every homeowner now paid rent to Elias Green. The HOA's power collapsed overnight. Helen Marks resigned publicly. In her statement, she said, "We underestimated a quiet man." Months later, Elias stood on a small hill overlooking the rows of identical houses. Children rode bikes down streets named after developers who no longer mattered. Beside him stood Officer Reed, the same policeman who had read the court order that day. Reed smiled. "You could have stopped them early. Why let them finish?" Elias chuckled. "My granddad used to say, 'Don't interrupt a fool while he is proving he won.'" Reed laughed. "So now what?" Elias looked at the horizon. Now they learn who really owns the ground they stand on. He donated part of the land's income to build a community center, one that offered free legal education to families at risk of losing their property. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, he spoke softly into the mic. Ownership isn't just about papers. It's about protecting what our ancestors built, and doing it with patience. Applause filled the air. Even Helen attended quietly at the back, tears in her eyes. Later, she approached him. "I was wrong, Elias. I judged you." He smiled. "We all make mistakes. Some just build 96 of them." She laughed through tears. And for the first time, the land felt peaceful again. The camera panned across the sunset, the homes glowing orange against the evening sky, while a voiceover said, "Never raise your voice. Let the truth do the talking." If this story inspired you, tap subscribe, like, and comment, because patience and justice always win in the end.